listening to the Digitally Irresistible podcast, where we cover the optimization of digital technologies and irresistible people. Brought to you by iQor. Each episode features someone who sheds a little more light on the ins and outs of delivering a great employee and customer experience that has a measurable impact on the business. And now, here's today's guest. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Digitally Irresistible podcast. I'm your host, Bernie Borges. Today's guest is Flo Navarro. Welcome, Flo.
Hi, Bernie. How are you?
Doing great. Looking forward to having a great conversation with you on a really key topic for us here at iQor. And Flo, as you know, we are in the business of delivering outsourced customer care, customer experience services for brands across many industries. And that means that we are in a constant mode of recruiting, constantly. We're recruiting employees that really meet the needs of our new client programs, but also for the expansion of current client programs. The bottom line, Flo, is that we're always recruiting. And with more
Mhm.
than 30,000 employees at the time of this recording, the recruiting buck stops with you, Flo Navarro. You are the global head of recruiting. Such a big job. So that's what I'm excited to talk to you about on this episode is that job, that global recruiting responsibility that's on your shoulders. So let's get into it. But first, of course, let's begin with your introduction, kind of your backstory.
Sure. So, my current role as global head of recruitment, and also I lead the Philippines HR side of things. I've only been with iQor for 4 years, and I have never been this excited in my entire career of 21 years. And the interesting part about this, I'm not sure if a lot of people know, is that when I was applying with iQor, my background was really in operations and training. And when I was offered the head of HR role, I was really surprised and excited at the same time. But it goes to show what kind of culture we have at the company,
Yeah.
that they really value, your skills, your competency, and most of all, the leadership that you can bring to the table.
Yeah.
So I really, really admire that.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. As you said, it's part of our culture. So let's get into the recruiting process. As I mentioned in the introduction, we're constantly in a mode of recruiting and you head up global recruiting. So why don't you give us a brief overview of what the recruiting process looks like?
So we do recruitment at iQor from end to end, right? We do the sourcing, the screening, the selection, all the way through onboarding. But none of those things are possible without help from our colleagues from the marketing department who help us do our creative ads, and also our IT and technology team, because we invest a whole lot on technology here at iQor. We're very privileged because I know that is one of our advantages over others, is that we are powered by really strong technology on top of very capable recruiters on the ground.
Yeah. Now, there's also, in addition to the technology side, which is a key element, of course, there's also some support that you get from marketing, right? Because we're constantly in a mode of promoting the opportunities that exist at iCourse. So why don't you speak to that a little bit as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So, especially given now, right? We were at a point that hiring digitally is really important, right? Gone are the days that you meet someone on the street and you start recruiting them. How I wish that we still have that nowadays, but we don't. And the really creative part of that is we are now doing all of our advertising online, and that is only possible because we constantly brainstorm with the marketing department and we think about what are the real messages that we want the applicants to know about us, right? The authentic iCor, and what are the things that they should look forward to in terms of compensation, benefits, and really the culture of joining the iCor family. So we collaborate and we work together to make sure that those messages come across online.
Right. Right. And with the kind of volume that you and your team are doing, recruiting volume that is, why don't you just touch on briefly what the onboarding process looks like, right? Because it's one thing to be doing recruiting and then you hire people and you bring them on board and get them up to speed. What does that look like?
Yeah, and in fact, before I answer that question about onboarding, the technology piece that I keep talking about, it's from the start till the end of the recruitment process.
Okay.
So talking about technology from the very beginning, I talked about marketing ads, right, that we do online. Now, all those ads, all the leads and the applicants that we have, right, we have a really, really good foundation and a platform that we use, right? So everything that we do is online and we have tools and systems and applications that we use. Now, I'm going to transition over to onboarding, which is your question. So, every country has mandatory documents and IDs that employees or future employees need to submit. And before those things are submitted once again face to face. So, we have made that very convenient to our applicants. So they don't need to come to our offices. What they can do is just, either take a photo or scan, and they can upload the documents themselves online. So we have made it really easy for the candidates, but at the same time, easy for the recruiters without, without making or making sure that, the documents and the requirements are still submitted to us on time.
Right. Right. Terrific. Thank you for sharing that. Now, Flo, during these times, I'm sure that candidates that are applying or considering applying want to know how we're handling COVID times, right? So I know that we've got a COVID group that your team has set up. So why don't you speak to that as well?
Sure, sure. So iQor is one of the companies that realized first that this pandemic is going to hit us much more than we anticipate. And that foresight, that early realization put us at an advantage. So, early part of 2020, we formed what we call a COVID group as part of the HR team. And what this team does is they really take care of the employees, right? So, if someone reported that they're not feeling well, the COVID team will handle it and they will constantly call them until the time that they are better. We guide them on the things that they need to do, which doctors to go to, which clinics to go to. We provide them telemedicine so that they don't have to physically walk to a hospital because we do have online doctors waiting for them. And at the same time, they monitor and they also do the contact tracing for us. The contact tracing piece is really important because it makes sure that everyone else in the office is safeguard and we made sure that the environment is safe for others to work. So, that team has done wonders for us as we navigate through the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, that's terrific. That's terrific. I've heard just great feedback on it. So thank you for sharing that. Flo, since we only have limited time together on this podcast, why don't you share a success story, a recruiting success story? I know that there's so many that you have, but why don't you pick one that you want to share with our viewers and listeners?
You're right, Bernie. There are so many exciting stories, but one particular client every year will ask us to hire thousands in a short amount of time. And I can, with great pride, tell you that year on year we always exceed their expectations. And the reason for that because our team knows the secret recipe in terms of planning, collaborating with IT as well as the marketing group, and we make sure that the talents and the candidates, the ones with the right fit, are always waiting for that opportunity to work with us, and that's extremely exciting for everybody.
Well, it's a well-deserved shout out. And, let's also give a shout out to the fact that you and your team have a process in place. And as you've mentioned already, there's technology components in place, there's the marketing elements. So all these processes really come together. And then you and your team step up each and every time and exceed those recruiting goals. So that is fantastic. And I know that we have more stories like that, but in the interest of time, we'll leave it at that one. I do want to ask you, at the beginning, as we spoke about your background and how you came into this role, you mentioned the culture at iQor. What is it about the irresistible culture at iQor that you love so much, Flo?
Yeah, that is easy to answer. When I joined iCore, I've been in other global companies, right? But the thing that resonated well with me is the fact that leaders here roll up our sleeves, we work with our teams, and we make sure that things get done immediately, right? We don't sit in meetings, meeting after meeting without getting things done. So we're all, we we all like to do things and we know that we're effective in doing them. And I really like the fact that, we know how to collaborate and work well with each other.
Fantastic. I agree. I couldn't agree more. So I'll leave it at that. So, Flo, my final question, and that is when you are not working and busy doing all this global recruiting, what do you like to do for fun?
So I have two answers to this question. One is pre-pandemic, and the other one is currently, what I do for fun. So pre-pandemic, my family and I love to host parties at home. We do have a lot of friends, and we like to socialize, exchanging stories. As we all know, that is not possible at this point in time. So today, I am very easy to please, right? I like binge watching whenever I can, but I do have small kids, so I can't do watching all the time. But thank God for, we have Netflix and Amazon Prime and all that. They keep me sane. So that's what I do right now, Bernie.
For fun, yeah. Well, you're not alone. I think a lot of us are doing that. So that is great. Flo, I just want to first of all just commend you and your team. I know you've got a big team and a very talented and hardworking team behind you, and you all share that irresistible culture and that dedication and commitment to recruiting. Because, as I mentioned in the introduction, it's a constant activity. I want to thank you for coming on the Digitally Irresistible podcast and sharing your story and how you're achieving and overachieving our global recruiting goals. Thank you, Flo.
Well, thank you so much, Bernie. I had a great time today.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Digitally Irresistible podcast, where we cover the optimization of digital technologies and irresistible people, delivering a great employee and customer experience that has a measurable impact on the business. Brought to you by iQor. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast player so you don't miss future episodes.